Storytime about how I almost got kidnapped by my online boyfriend. So a little background information, I was 16 and in 11th grade. So a year before this all happened, I posted a picture on Instagram saying, add me on Snapchat if you want to be friends. Yes, I was that person. Anyway, so this really cute guy adds me on Snapchat. And after about 3 months talking, he said that he wants to meet me in person. And he didn't sound sus at all, so I was like, sure. So we met at this park that was like 30 minutes away. And we met there around 6 o'clock, so when the sun was setting. And he was super nice. It was super romantic. Well, then we went to his house. We watched a movie and we did the nasty. So after that, he asked me if I want a drink. And what I could have swore was 20 minutes later, I wake up in an abandoned farm shed with no clothes or anything. So I start screaming my head off. I don't have my phone or anything, so I start to run. And then he grabs me. He says, if you try to run or you try to scream, I am going to kill you. Like for Part 2 about how I almost got kidnapped by my online boyfriend. So like I said, I wake up in this abandoned farm shed. I don't have no clothes. I don't have a phone. So I try to run and he grabs me. He says that if you run, I will kill you. So I was like, okay, fine. What do you want from me? So he starts putting on lingerie and tells me to also put some on so we can take pictures together. What the actual you know what? So after that, he starts crying and he starts telling me his whole life story and how he's not who I think he is. Turns out that he's 32 and he just goes online pretending that he's 17 years old. So I just try to comfort him, right? It ends up working. He brings me my clothes, tells me to run, or else he's going to, once again, kill me. So I run, I go to this gas station, get picked up by the police, find my parents. Luckily for me, I paid attention to where everything was. He was arrested, he's still in prison to this day, and I got grounded for 3 months. Time about how I ruined my ex-best friend's relationship and reputation in 2 days. So a little background information, I was 14 in 8th grade. I was in a very toxic friend group of 3, and we all secretly talk crap about each other. So 2 of the girls in my friend group decided that they didn't want to be friends with me anymore, for absolutely no reason. The one girl texted me saying, I don't want to be friends with you anymore, and then the other girl literally just played along with it because she can't think for herself. She was like, yeah, I've been planning on doing this for like 2 weeks. So I got very embarrassed by this because they started going around the school telling everybody about it. And not to sound like that person, but I was really popular. I had a lot more friends than them, and the only reason why people liked them was because they were my friends. Anyway, so I started texting the boys that they liked. And I was like, hey, I think you should know that they've been talking to other people while they're talking to you. And I just thought that that was really wrong. And when they asked who, I gave them names of boys that they both used to talk to. And then when the girls texted me about it, like for part 2 about how I ruined my ex-best friend's relationship and reputation in 2 days. So like I said, I texted the boys that they liked saying that they were talking to other people. And then of course my ex-best friends got mad and then they started texting me about it saying, oh, why are you lying, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, honestly, I just think it's really wrong for you to try and play these boys who actually have feelings for you. Yes, I know I was a little crazy, but who isn't? Anyway, so then I decided to get my mom involved because I had been friends with these girls for a while. So my mom knew their parents very well. So I told my mom I was really worried about them because they were starting to get into really bad stuff and hanging out with the wrong crowd. So I couldn't be friends with them. And they tried to talk me into doing stuff. So then my mom called their parents. Well, then their mom started to drop them off and pick them up every day because they were grounded. Well, then their mom started to apologize to my mom because their kids were such bad influences on me. And then when everybody asked why we stopped being friends, I told them that they made fun of my grandma who isn't alive. And 4 years later, everybody still hates them. Storytime about how I caught my grandma with my dad. So a little background information, I was 16 and it was the first day of 11th grade. Well, my friend wanted me to come to the mall with her after school that day. She was like, screw your grandma's birthday, just come to the mall with me. So the plan was I would sneak onto my best friend's bus after school and skip my grandma's birthday. By the way, my grandma was low-key a hoe. Like half of her kids won't even bring their husbands around her because after she got their numbers, she would end up sending nude pictures to them. Anyway, so the end of the day rolls around and I go to my locker to get my book bag. When I'm called down to the office. So I go down to the office and my mom is there to pick me up because she said that we needed to do a few things before our grandma's party. Well, my grandma was at our house getting ready and my mom forgot her wallet at home. So when we went back home, I went to go put my book bag in the house. When I walk in and I see my grandma and dad on the couch, and I'm not even gonna say what they were doing, and my mom is walking past them like she didn't see anything. So after that, I called one of my aunts and asked if I could stay with her for a while, and now I don't talk to any of them.
Am I wrong for making all the women in my family leave my wedding after they showed up wearing white? I, 33 male, have a large family, mostly aunts and female cousins aside from the mom, stepmom, stepsister, and grandmother. I don't know how to say this, but all those women I mentioned above are into teasing and joking. They formed a unit, which I admit is kind of toxic, and they tease and roast every new woman that enters the family by marriage by setting up tests to see if they deserve to be part of the family, or roast their looks and styles to the point of breaking confidence and self-esteem down. Then, after a few months of teasing, they announced that they finally welcomed them into the family. The newest member would join in on the teasing too. When I first introduced my then girlfriend, now wife, I made it clear that I didn't want any of the women in the unit to come at her or harass her, not even with a single word. They went behind my back and roasted her looks and job, and I discovered they've been doing it on Facebook. I made them apologize one by one after they gave the "we're just testing the water to see if she's capable to be part of the family" excuse. They didn't want to apologize, but once I said I wouldn't invite any of the unit unless they apologized, including my mom, everyone immediately apologized and brought gifts for my wife. My wedding was 2 weeks ago. There was talk about the women in the family wanting to pull a prank on my wife by wearing white and called it the ultimate test to see how my wife would react. My brother warned me, so I announced that if any one of them showed up in white, I'd have them kicked out, including my mom. They said this wasn't true and they'd never do such a thing. But they showed up to my wedding day one by one wearing white dresses, and each and every one of them was told to leave after they tried giving excuses by either making scenes or getting the men involved. The senior women of the unit, who are my mom and aunts, also showed up in white but refused to leave. I threatened to take harsher action and my mom was pissed, telling me to step aside, but I didn't let her in. I had her leave while the men in my family were watching stunned. Dad was on my side and supported me a lot. My wife was hurt beyond measure, but the women in the family were pissed. My cousin blasted me on social media later, saying I excluded all the women from the wedding because my wife was so insecure she couldn't handle another woman's presence at her wedding. I felt absolutely awful because my wedding was being interrupted by them making scenes. I had an argument with them and my mom berated me, saying it was supposed to be a prank, but I said they were taking it too far. My mom said I took it too far by kicking them out because they were trying to get a reaction from my wife to see if she was one of those bridezillas and were going to change as soon as the prank was over. But I ruined my own wedding, an entire wedding, by reacting so aggressively. I stopped talking after she said I had to bring my wife and apologize. I haven't seen a lot of them in 2 weeks and they've excluded me from everything. So was I wrong for how I handled the situation? Absolutely. Oh my god, look at this. Absolutely not. Your wife is one lucky woman to have a man stand by her like that. Like, applause to you. Good job. Am I wrong for blowing up at my dad for asking me to pay for a family dinner? I, 27 male, lost my mom at 15 in a road accident. I was a fairly airheaded kid in school and was great academically. My dad, 48 male, remarried to Isabel 10 months later for my care. The 2 years after my mom's passing were extremely hard on me. Isabel was temperamental with me, sometimes nice or almost ignoring me. She had a son who was 2 years older. We practically had no relationship as he moved for college around the time they got married. When I was 17, I was going through old pictures. I ran into some domestic pictures of Isabel and my dad. I realized many of them were from Seattle. Only time my dad was there was when he had been working on site for weeks the year before my mom died. There had been a fight between my parents about the on-sites not bringing the family extra money. I realized that my dad was probably cheating on my mom with Isabel prior to her death. I don't know if my mom knew this, though I think so. I kept it quiet because Isabel was pregnant with my stepsister at this time. I found out later that year that my mom had left me as her sole inheritor, which was quite some money. Her parents' inheritance money and 50% of the house. This had helped me pay for college. My dad challenged this will, causing some delay in executing it. Some words were said about my mom, which I didn't like. My dad also had taken $6,000 from my account. I let it go because I honestly was happy to have money for college. After moving out of state to college, I've been low contact with my dad. I had a court wedding due to COVID and have a 7-month-old now. 2 weeks ago, I was in town and my dad decided to meet me and my family, which I agreed to. It was at a nicer restaurant in town and along came Isabel, my stepsister, and Isabel's son, his girlfriend, and 2 kids. The dinner was good until Isabel brought the house up and mentioned my stepbrother's wife losing her job. I deflected this to a private chat with my dad. No fucking way am I giving it up. This made the conversation much more difficult. When the check came, my dad asked me to take care of the bill and I refused, asking them to split it. I had no idea everyone was coming and had no contact with any of them prior to this. My dad started to bring up how I had a nest egg and my mom babied me. Suddenly, my stepbrother said, "Dude, just get it. You'll be fine." I kind of saw red at this moment and I told him to shut the fuck up and that my mom gave me the money because my dad was an adulterer. Isabel got in the middle and asked me not to talk to my dad like that, and my wife tried to calm me down. I said I don't want anything to do with his family and to keep our relationship just between me and my dad. Anyways, more words were shared and I handed them the cash from my side and left. My wife said I shouldn't have acted like that, but still had my side. So, was I wrong here for my reaction?
My friend's boyfriend called me up once and said, I'm trying to buy flowers for Nicole. I feel stupid. I don't know what I'm doing. She told me she likes carnations. And I said, don't worry, I've got you. She might have said she likes carnations because she actually likes them, but she might have also said it because they're the cheapest flowers and she doesn't know what your budget is. Don't buy her the yellow bouquets. Those are for your sick grandma in the hospital. And the rainbow bouquets are what a dad buys his 9-year-old daughter. And he was like, ha! And I said, just go for like deep, rich tones. And he said, okay. And he picked out a bouquet and he carried it to the cashier and he said, do these flowers look like flowers you'd give your sick grandma? And the cashier said, no. And he was like, perfect. Then he called me up again later to invite me to go ring shopping with him because he wanted to secretly propose to Nicole. And it was so fun, but I didn't know that there's like a secret language to buying diamonds. We got in there and he done all his research and he said, okay, this one's a little bit too yellow. And I told you that I didn't want a princess cut or a halo. And they would look at me all confused and say, what does the lady want? And I was like, oh no, we're not together. He just puts up with all this because he wants to marry my sweet, mentally stable friend. I was no help at all, which is probably why he ended up taking her other best friend ring shopping, but then that best friend let it slip to Nicole that she was getting proposed to, which put me in a very awkward position because Nicole kept asking me, has my boyfriend said anything to you about him wanting to propose? And I was sitting there munching on my cookie from Wilson's Diamonds like, no, he hasn't told me anything. So when she found out, I had to be like, this is brand new information. I am hurt that he told your other friend and not me. And she said, that's just because he knows you're such a loyal friend that you could never ever lie to me. And that made me want to die. I immediately texted him what she had told me and I was like, I hate you. And he said, just try to keep it a secret for a little longer even though it's already out. Don't ruin this for me. I've been planning my engagement since I was 5. And I was like, that's weird, but okay. Also, if you ever want to feel like you're living in a musical, be best friends with a love-struck ballet dancer. Because when she found out that she was getting proposed to, we were on the sidewalk outside of Ross and she started like prancing and spinning. So they got married and then they moved in next to me as my neighbors, which was fun and weird because sometimes I would like go knock on their door to borrow some vanilla and they wouldn't answer, but I could hear Harry Potter playing really loudly and I was like, come on guys, I know you're having sex in the blanket fort right now. One morning they invited me over for a birthday breakfast and when I walked in there was this beautiful bouquet on the table and I said, hey, good job picking out Nicole's flowers. And her husband said, no kid, I picked those out for you for your birthday and to thank you for teaching me how to pick out flowers. And I was just like, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry.
Story time about the girl who was weirdly obsessed with my best friend. So a little background information, I was 14 and in 9th grade, and I went to a private school, so there was only one class per grade. So my best friend and I were in class together, and we're going to call her Bella. And then there was this girl, Gabby, who had kind of been friends with for almost a year. Well, Gabby was a whore for popularity. Like anything that the popular kids would ask her to do, she would get on her hands and knees and do it. This woman did not care. Well, we had a project working up, so all 3 of us decided to work on it together. So I invited them over my house, and Gabby said that she needed to use the bathroom. So Bella offered to show her where the bathroom was. Probably 3 minutes later, Bella comes running up the stairs like she just saw a ghost. She was telling me that Gabby took all of her clothes off and tried making out with her. Well, that night they both spent the night, and I wake up in the middle of the night to Gabby pinning Bella to the wall trying to kiss her. But I went back to sleep and acted like nothing ever happened. Fast forward, it got to the point where Bella was actually feeling really unsafe, so her parents switched her schools. Story time about how my boyfriend and best friend were sneaking around behind my back. So a little background information, I was 15 and in 10th grade. So my mom and dad were split up and I was pretty much allowed to do whatever I wanted because of that. So I was dating this boy named Jacob. Well, my best friend Alice literally hated him. Like low-key, every once in a while, she would try to break him and I up. And when I would call her out on it, she would just deny it. Anyway, so the one day I didn't go to school because I was super sick. So the whole day I was trying to text Jacob and Allison, but nobody was answering me. Which was extremely weird because no matter what, Allison would always text me back. So after I knew the school ended, I went to Allison's house. Nobody was answering the door, so I used the spare key. I walk in and all I hear is a very loud banging coming from her bedroom. So I walk in, I see my boyfriend and her together, and then he starts saying that she drugged him. So I went on his phone, I see a bunch of old text messages between him and her, and them exchanging pictures. And then sis wants to start giving me an attitude, so I punched her in the face, and then I left and I don't talk to either of them. Every time about how I was almost kidnapped. So a little background information, I was 13, and it was the summer going into 9th grade. I was on a road trip with my family and we needed to stop for some gas. So we stopped at some random gas station and we see this lady get out of her car and walk in. No big deal though. So we're inside and we're waiting in line to use the bathroom. So we were in the front of the line and then that lady was behind us and then there were a few people behind her. So as we're standing in line, she FaceTimes some guy and then she starts pointing the camera at people around the store and she would be like, "Oh, do you like this?" And he would say yes or no. Well, then she points the phone at me. And then he goes, "Yeah, that's the one." And my mom and I were super creeped out about this because she was being super loud and she was taking a really long time at this gas station. So my mom goes into the bathroom and then she starts to talk to me. She starts asking how old I am, where I'm from, and if my mom and I were here with anybody else. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how I was almost kidnapped. So like I said, she starts to talk to me and ask me super personal questions. And I'm being vague about everything that I possibly can be. So I go in, I use the restroom after my mom. We grab some snacks and then she follows us around the whole store. And she didn't even use the bathroom. So we leave the store and we saw the car that she got out of and it was parked right next to our car. When originally it was parked all the way across the parking lot. And I'm guessing the man who she was on FaceTime with was in the car. And he was sitting right where my car door was. So my mom and I decide to walk around a little bit and this lady is just following behind us the whole time. So we call my dad who was across the street at another store. We told him about the situation so he comes and picks us up and then he sees the car pick the lady up and they start following us. So then they followed us for about 25 to 30 freaking miles. And then they ended up turning off on some random road. And I have a feeling if my mom and I didn't pay such close attention to what they were doing, I would have been kidnapped and trafficked. Storytime about my toxic best friend group. So a little background information. I was 16 and it was the end of 9th grade going into summer break. And one day randomly these 3 girls added me on Snapchat and put me into a group chat. Now I had seen them around school but I never said hi to them. I was finding it very hard to make friends in 9th grade because everybody was so toxic. Anyways, like I said, they added me to a group chat and all of them said hi to me. And usually I wouldn't respond to random people on Snapchat, but because I had seen them around school, I decided why not. And it was so random, they just started sending pictures of themselves into this group chat. And it low-key made me feel bad because I kind of hated my physical appearance. But anyways, they asked me if I wanted to be friends with them. Oh, and by the way, their names were Stacy, Savannah, and Emily. So of course I said yeah because it was hard for me to make friends. So fast forward, my birthday was coming up. So they asked me if we could hang out. They said they wanted to give me an early birthday present. So I said yes, of course. Like for part 2. Part 2 about my toxic friend group. So like I said, they asked me if we could hang out to give me an early birthday present. So I said yeah. And Emily had a pool at her house, so they asked me if I wanted to go over there. And of course I said yeah, it was summertime and it was hot outside. Well, when I got there, they asked me to order the pizza and they said that I had to pay for it. So I said yeah, because they were my besties at the time. So I used some of my birthday money to pay for the pizza for all of us. And when I got back to Emily's house, they were all already in the pool. So I was kind of mad, 1, because they didn't go with me, and 2, they were just hanging out without me. So we're sitting there eating the pizza. And then after, all 3 of them get in the pool and they start taking pictures with each other, not even asking me to be in any pictures. So at that point, I was so annoyed. I was just like, you guys are being so rude. And Emily's like, what are you talking about? We didn't even do anything. And then, of course, Stacy and Savannah agreed. So I was like, 1, you didn't even ask me to be in any pictures and you made me pay for the pizza for all of us. And she was like, you're ugly. We didn't want you in the pictures. So I threw the pizza away and went home. Story time. My best friend slept with my boyfriend on my birthday. So a little background information. I was 16 and a sophomore in high school. Well, I had this best friend who we are going to call Sarah. Her and I became super close over the summertime, but she was like on and off best friends with this other girl who we're gonna call Mackenzie. But I had this boyfriend who I was also really on and off with. And Sarah knew about all the problems within our relationship. Well, I guess I underestimated how close Sarah and Mackenzie were, because everything that I told Sarah, she went back and she told Mackenzie. And not to mention, Mackenzie was really close with my boyfriend. So of course, she told my boyfriend everything that I was saying. This ended up causing a huge fight between my boyfriend and I. Well, the night before my birthday, my boyfriend and I were going back and forth arguing, and around 12 a.m. on my birthday, I forced myself to fall asleep, and at around 1 a.m., I woke up to 20 Snapchat notifications, all from my boyfriend. And when I opened them, I saw the worst thing ever. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how my best friend slept with my boyfriend on my birthday. So like I said, I woke up at around 1 a.m. to 20 Snapchat notifications from my boyfriend, and I saw the absolute worst thing ever. The first 5 notifications were just him calling me names, and then all the other ones were just him doing stuff with my best friend. And you guys can already guess what I mean by doing stuff. So at this point, I was heartbroken, I was pissed off, but of course, because I gotta have the receipts, I went and took a video off my sister's phone of everything that he sent me. In the morning, I woke up to a text from an unknown number, and it turned out to be my boyfriend's best friend saying that him and Sarah were now together. So my boyfriend asked me to meet up and apologize. So I met him at this park, and he apologized to me, telling me that he wanted to get back together with me. But I told him to KMA, and I left. Then Sarah came to my house and keyed my car, and then we fought on my front lawn. And then after that, she was texting me about how she was coming back to my house, like for part 3. Part 3 about how my best friend slept with my boyfriend. So like I said, she came to my house and she keyed my car, and I caught her, so I went outside. We fought on my front lawn. After she left, she kept sending me messages saying that she was coming back to my house so we could fight again, but she was blocked, so I didn't get any of the messages. And then my ex came to my house and brought me flowers. And this was all in a span of 1 day. So because it was my birthday party, my cousins were at my house, and I already told them everything that happened. So they went outside and they fought him. Well, then I ended up sending all the videos to his parents, her parents, his siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins who loved me. Then I also decided to take legal action, and I sent the cops all of the screenshots of Sarah harassing me. And my sister got a video of us fighting, so I sent that to them too. Well, since she was 18 and I literally just turned 16, she got 3 months in county jail for minor harassment and minor physical altercations. So in the end, I think I won. Storytime about how my best friend set me up to get cheated on. So a little background information, I was 16 and in 11th grade, and I went to a very strict boarding school. I was best friends with this girl who we're going to call Emma, and we were the closest out of our whole friend group. Well, our boarding school also had a building for all the boys, but it was like a mile or 2 away from our building. Well, the days that we had off, the juniors and seniors were allowed to go visit each other's campuses. Well, a couple of the senior boys put together a little celebration for the first day of school. So my friends and I got ready, we went to the party, and my friend Emma pointed out this one group of guys. So we went over there, they were all super nice, but I hit things off with this kid who we're gonna call Ethan. We exchanged numbers. Well, when we got back to the dorm, I told Emma about Ethan, and she was like being super weird. She was like, "Ew, you shouldn't date him. He's really sus." I would have thought that she wished that she got with Ethan, but she hit it off with one of the guys from the same friend group. So Ethan and I end up dating, and Emma did not like that. Like for part 3. Part 2 about how my best friend set me up to get cheated on. So like I said, sooner or later, Ethan and I started dating, and Emma did not like that. And Ethan was honestly the best boyfriend ever. Never saw any red flags or anything like that. So fast forward, Ethan and I have been dating for 4 months. Well, winter break rolled around, and you had a choice to just take the day off, or you could stay and help the school clean up and stuff like that. So Ethan and I decided to go help at the school, and he was just acting super different. It wasn't like cheating or anything like that, but something was off. Like, he would tell me to go through his phone, but the weird thing was he always deleted his messages with Emma. Well, the one day Emma sends me a video of Ethan making out with some girl. So I broke up with Ethan. He said it wasn't his fault, but he couldn't tell me why. Well, a month goes by, and one of the other girls in our friend group says that she has to tell me something. Apparently, she went through Emma and Ethan's conversations, and Emma was blackmailing him with a video of him destroying school property. She said that she would send it to the school if he didn't send her proof of him cheating on me. Now Ethan and I have been dating for 2 years, and Emma still tries to reach out, but everyone in our friend group cut her off. Story time about how I saw my boyfriend propose to another girl in front of me. So a little background information. At the time, my boyfriend and I had been together for around 4 years. We had 2 kids together, and our relationship was pretty rocky. Within the first year of us dating, he would cheat on me all the time, and both times that I was pregnant, he would cheat on me also. Now, after I popped out the second kid, our relationship was going pretty well. And if you're wondering why I didn't leave him when he was cheating on me all the time, Well, it was mainly because I grew up in a broken home, and remembering how hard it was on me whenever my parents broke up, I didn't want that for them. Well, over the past few months, my boyfriend had been traveling all over the country with his dad, going to meetings and stuff because he was getting ready to take over half the company. Well, fast forward, it's a Thursday, and my boyfriend has a meeting with some associates who flew in from out of state, and later that night we were supposed to get on a flight with our friends to go to the Bahamas. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how my boyfriend literally proposed to another girl right in front of me. So like I said, my boyfriend had a meeting with some associates who flew in from out of town. And that night we were supposed to be on a plane to the Bahamas with our friends. So while he was getting ready for this meeting, I went and I dropped the kids off early. And he went to this meeting and I drove our luggage over to our friend's house. Because they were just going to drive us to the airport. So my girlfriend and I are super pumped to go on this trip. So we decided to start drinking early and we went somewhere to get drinks. She suggests this high-end place because the guy at the bar has a crush on her and always gives her free drinks. So we're sitting there having a really good time drinking at the bar. So while we're sitting there, we hear a bunch of clapping and cheering coming from outside. So us being drunk and nosy, we go out there to see what's going on. And what are the chances I walk out there and my boyfriend is down on one knee in front of another girl? And I'm not very confrontational whenever I drink, so I told my best friend to just take me back to her house. When we got back, it was around 6 p.m. And my boyfriend tells me that he's just going to meet us at the airport like for part 3. Part 3 about how my boyfriend proposed to another girl right in front of me. I know this is late, but better late than never. So like I said, we left, I went back to her house, and my boyfriend has the audacity to text me, I'll just meet you guys at the airport. So my best friend's like, what do you want to do? Do you want to go beat him up? Of course I said no, so I told her and her boyfriend to just go to the airport while I figured out what I was going to do, and to not say a word. Which was hard for my best friend because she was confrontational as fuck. So I texted my boyfriend saying that I was sick and I just wasn't going to go to the Bahamas with them, when in reality I was packing up our whole house, leaving him with only his clothes and his shoes. So I put all the stuff in storage and I just decided to move back to my mom's house. And yes, this was in a span of a few days. So the whole time that he was gone, I was acting like everything was okay. On the last day of the trip, I sent him a text saying that I knew about everything. And I said I never wanted to hear from him again and I never wanted him to see the kids again. And he took that quite literally. I never got a text back. Well, 4 months after all this happened, I soon find out that he got a new house in North Carolina with his new wife and they have a daughter on the way.
Storytime about the girl next door. So around the time I lived in New York with my sister and dad, across the street there was a girl. I never knew her name, but she was really pretty. I had to be 11 and her herself maybe 15, 16. I was always playing outside and ever so often she came out to take a baby for a stroll. Back then it never really occurred to me that she was a teen mom. Truthfully, I thought that baby was her little sister. And the baby would cry all the time and she could never get the baby to quiet down. The guy she lived with, which I believe was her dad, would get mad at her when she couldn't quiet the baby down. There was a particular night after 4th of July, the baby was crying and again she couldn't get the baby to stop crying. At that time I was outside jumping rope and I heard a slap and a pound against the door and the baby stopped crying. I was scared that something happened to the baby, but come back for part 2 so I could tell you guys what happened. Part 2 of the girl that lived next door. So like I said, the baby was crying and in the middle of the night I heard a slap and a pound against the door and the baby stopped crying. I was afraid that something had happened to the baby, so I ran across the street and I listened to the sounds behind the front door. The guy that lived there had opened the door and I fell into the house. He yelled at me saying, "What are you doing on my property?" When I got up and I looked up, the baby was on the ground and the girl had bruises on her face. I told him I was sorry and I asked what happened to the baby. He yelled at me, telling me to get out, and the girl got up to pick the baby up and the baby started crying again. I got scared and ran back across the street. And the next day, the man came back and knocked on my door. Come back for part 3. Part 3 of the girl that lived next door. So like I said, the man came back and knocked on my door. My sister had answered and he asked my dad, but around that time my dad wasn't home, so he just left. From then on, I was kind of afraid of going outside because I was afraid that the man was going to see me, so for a whole week I never came out. When I finally decided to go out, I asked my sister to come with me and play jump rope. While we were outside playing jump rope, our neighbors across the street, second floor, blinds opened, and I looked up because the blinds are never open. As we were looking, the words "help me" were on the window, and which appeared to be written in red lipstick. We got scared and told our dad, and my dad immediately called the police, but after the police visited, they told my dad that there wasn't anyone in there. No baby, no girl, just a man living across the street. Said maybe we were seeing things or reading things wrong. It gets really bad after this. Come back for part 4. Part 4 about the girl that lived across the street. I think maybe a month after the incident, I stopped seeing the girl and I stopped hearing the baby. And I kind of stopped thinking about them for a while. I thought maybe her and her little sister moved with their mom and left the guy who I thought which was their dad. I'd say that next year I finally saw the girl, but this time she was much skinnier. She had came up to me and asked me if I seen her daughter. I said no, and she walked away. I was confused at first because I didn't know that baby was hers. Then years later, it was my prom night. Before I took a step out of my house, I seen out my window that an entire police SWAT team came to arrest my neighbor. Then they went into the house and there were multiple girls. Had to be like 8 of them coming out of his house, and some of the girls looked really weak. Lastly, there was a little girl and she had to be like 6, 7, and I thought it was crazy, like how did all those girls get in there? To this day, I wonder what happened to the girl next door and if she ever found her baby. Am I wrong for breaking up my best friend's relationship with her boyfriend? Some people may say it was petty, but I think it was justice. So my best friend at the time, which we're going to call Coco, had a boyfriend, and we're going to call him Nick. They met in high school their junior year, and they were together for about 2 years. Nick was seriously in love with Coco. He would literally do everything for her. Honestly, Nick was like her little puppet. Honestly, throughout the relationship, I felt as though Coco really didn't respect Nick. I mean, the things that he did for her, I wish a man would do for me. And I just really felt like she didn't really appreciate him. If I was in a relationship with Nick, the relationship would have been mutual. I seriously believe that Nick deserved better because Coco wouldn't do anything. She literally added no value to the relationship, but Nick, he would buy her things, took her shopping, went on dates, went on trips, and Coco had nothing to show for it. So I made a plan to steal her man. And in the next part, I'll tell you exactly why I decided to make that choice. Part 2 on why I decided to steal my best friend's man. So, like I said, the relationship between Coco and Nick wasn't mutual. Coco seriously did not deserve him. In the process of their entire relationship, Coco was cheating on Nick. And, as a best friend, I tried to keep it cordial, but I just didn't like how Nick was getting treated, especially with all the things that he was doing for her. And you won't even believe the person that she was cheating on Nick with. My crush. And she knew that was my crush. She tried to hide the fact that she was talking to him, but I ended up finding out through mutual friends. I never confronted Coco about it because I just wanted to see if she would be honest with me, but for weeks she never did. So one day I decided to go to Nick's house, and I practically told him what it was. At first he didn't believe me, but then once he realized me out of all people would come to him about the situation, he understood and felt heartbroken. So we created a plan to hurt Coco. Come back for part 3. Part 3 on why I decided to steal my best friend's man. So, like I said, I went to his house and told him that Coco was cheating on him. And all necessary, I really don't know what Coco was doing with my crush, but I heard from other people that she was talking to him. And honestly, that was enough information for me. And we decided to plan a romantic sneaky link and invite her an hour later. In the process of us doing this, I didn't expect anything to happen, but it did. And I don't know if he expected anything to happen that night, but he practically ended up cheating on Coco with me. Later that night, when she finally arrived, Nick told her she actually needed to go home and that he was busy doing something, even though he invited her to come over. She felt something was off, so she ran upstairs to his bedroom, which was where I was. When she saw me, she yanked me by my hair and pulled me out of the bed. And the rest was history. I ended up finding out 2 weeks later after that incident, the only reason why she was talking to my crush was to get him with me. This Storytime is from a follower, and she really needs advice. By the way, we're calling her Kalani. Kalani is 17 years old, and she just got out of a 2-year relationship. About 2 months later, after the relationship ended, she thought she was ready to get back out there. Her friends convinced her to get on a dating app, and they made a profile for her. Occasionally, she'll go on the app and talk to a couple people, but nothing would ever work. In her settings, she made herself available to guys all over the world, but until recently, she decided to change it to her city. As she was swiping through, she came across a profile that looked like her dad. She was honestly shocked, so she clicked on the page, and everything about him was him. His age, where he worked, where he lived. For a moment, she thought maybe this could be a fake page. Then she digged more into his profile and seen pictures that she's never seen before. She doesn't know if she should confront her dad or tell her mom. Give her some advice down below. Or please.
Stayed in touch to continent through all of.
This story time is from a follower, and he really needs advice. So we're gonna go ahead and call him Junior, and Junior is 21 years old. Junior has a medical condition which keeps him from working a regular job. His family supports him. They pay for his rent, they pay for his travels, and they pay for his education. And Junior is gay. He said he's known since he was 12. He said that he has a boyfriend and they've been together for 3 years, which, by the way, we're gonna call Drake. Drake has never met Junior's parents, and now he's getting a bit anxious, and he said that he's tired of being kept a secret. Drake has been getting distant, and he doesn't know how long he could stay in a relationship while being hidden. Steven said the only reason why he hides Drake is because his family is very homophobic, and he's afraid that his family might cut him off. He's afraid that he might become homeless, and he doesn't want anyone else trying to take care of him. But he's afraid keeping him a secret might make him lose Drake. Please comment down below, or please make a... This story time is from a follower, and she seriously needs help. We're gonna call her Aliana, and she's between the ages of 19 to 24 years old. So, Aliana has a daughter, and the child's father, which we're gonna call Kobe, are co-parenting. Ever since she gave birth to their daughter, Kobe had been dismissing her about everything. He constantly questions her about everything that she does, and she said it gives her really bad anxiety. He can be mean at times, and as of recently, Kobe had her under the impression that he opened up a credit card with their daughter's social security card without talking to her about it. When she expressed to him that she really didn't appreciate that, his response is, "She's my daughter. I don't have to run anything by you or anyone else. I'm gonna do whatever I want." And it's been like that for every situation. She's trying to get some respect out of him as the mother of his child. At this point, she'd really rather him be a deadbeat than a father at all if this is what she has to deal with. She's cried to her family about it, but they really don't know what to do. Please comment down below some advice or make...
Storytime of how I found out that my mom was actually my older sister. My older sister never really liked me as a child. We were never close. I never knew why, but I was guessing it was because of the 10-year age gap. But I'm pretty sure she hated me because she couldn't even look me in the eye. I cannot make this up. She would not look me in the eye. But she never really talked to my parents either. She kind of just kept to herself all the time. Sometimes I have vivid memories of when we were younger and she would always be arguing with my parents about something, and I always thought it had something to do with me. Well, I was right. It had everything to do with me because eventually my sister turned 18 and she moved out. For 2 years, I didn't talk to her at all. I honestly don't even think I had her number saved, and I'm pretty sure that she didn't have mine. Well, 2 years later, and I was 10 at the time, she reached out to me via social media. I'm not sure how she found my Instagram name, but it was just my name, so she probably just typed that in and found me. She DM'd me and told me that she wanted to talk about something very important and that she would like to talk over the phone. So we exchanged numbers and we called that same night. And she told me that when she was younger, my dad had taken advantage of her and gotten her pregnant. Part 2 of how I found out that my mom was actually my older sister. Like I said, my older sister had reached out to me via social media and told me that she was actually my mother. And so after we got off the phone that same night, I lost it at dinner and I went off on my parents and I screamed at them. And I told them that I would go to the police and tell them everything and I would tell them the truth unless they just let me live with my older sister. And they tried to explain themselves, and their reasoning was that they wanted to keep the family together because of their traditional values, and it would have just made their lives a lot harder going through all the court proceedings, so they just kept the family together. And so they clearly didn't want me to go into the police, so they said that I could go live with my older sister. So she came to get me, but she lived in a different state, so it kind of took a while. I still had to stay in the house for like a week or so before she came, but I packed all my stuff and I was ready to go. And when we went back to where she lived, we immediately called the police and told them everything. Fast forward a little bit, they did some DNA testing. My sister's DNA matched as my biological mother's, and then my dad was my biological father, and they saw how the ages just didn't match properly, so they took my father to jail.
When I was only 6, my parents abandoned me with my aunt and uncle for an entire week so they could go to Hawaii and make a sister that I never asked for. And while I was outside playing with my cousins, I fell down and I scratched my arm, so I went running to my uncle crying, and I showed him the scratch on my arm, and he said, "Oh no." And I said, "Can I have a Band-Aid?" And he said, "No." 6-year-old me was like, "What?" And my uncle said, "Are you bleeding?" And I looked at the scratch on my arm and I was like, "No." And he said, "Band-Aids are to stop bleeding, so if you're not bleeding, then that means that you don't need a Band-Aid, so no." That was 20 years ago, and to this day, I'm just like, what the hell, Mark? Who denies a crying 6-year-old girl a Band-Aid? It wasn't about the Band-Aid. My father had the audacity to abandon me with a perfect stranger who he was raised with, and you won't even give me a Band-Aid to patch together the pieces of my life? It was a good thing that my parents were off making a bonus daughter to replace me in case I had died in my uncle's neglectful care.
Am I the asshole for calling my brother's wife a neglectful, financial, irresponsible wife? My female 32 brother, male 36, had a serious accident in a truck 4 years ago. He became disabled and wheelchair bound. My sister-in-law used to be a stay-at-home wife. She's currently handling his care and is essentially living off his Social Security benefits, which isn't a lot. But my parents pay for the house's mortgage, so there's enough money to get them by. My sister-in-law and I never really got along, but we stay civil. However, my biggest argument with her happened days ago when she told us she was going to pursue her old job again to be able to earn money. My parents and I were confused and asked how she was going back to work when she has my disabled brother to care for. Am I the asshole for calling my brother's wife neglectful and financially irresponsible? She said she's hiring a carer to handle my brother's needs. I said she chose to become a stay-at-home wife. She said she has to go back to work and that a carer is better qualified to care for my brother since she feels overwhelmed and exhausted. I point out that a carer requires so much money and her new commitment of a job can't be put before her husband. She argued that she's the one in this situation and that I'm judging from a distance. I argue that this is my brother we're talking about and that I also help with the mortgage. I called her a neglectful, selfish, financially irresponsible wife for throwing my brother's money away on a carer when it's unnecessary. She was shocked and said I needed to show empathy. Am I the asshole for telling my friend to never come back to my house after he called my mom a Karen? My friends came over to my house for a movie. My mom had cancer and lost her hair, and she's been wearing a pixie cut wig until it grows back. My mom came downstairs to bring us popcorn, and when she went back upstairs, my friend laughed at my mom's Karen cut. He said it makes her look old and like a Karen mom. I got very mad and said that my mom had cancer and she's in remission and her hair is still growing back. Then he laughed and said, "Too bad, the only good Karen is a dead Karen." I called him a POS and told him to leave forever. My mom found out because I was crying, and then I had to explain what a Karen is and how it's a slur for middle-aged women. None of my friends are on my side and they're saying I'm a dramatic loser.